Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center, and it's that time of the year where we get to take a look at the best new knives of 2020. And these are based on what you guys decided. These are the top 10 most popular new knives of the year based on what you guys actually bought. Let's check them out. All right, you may have noticed that there are more than 10 knives here on the table in front of me. It's because I've got a few honorable mentions to talk about right at the top. And again, these are the knives as decided on by you. You guys are the ones who kind of bought these knives into their spots. As opposed to the video we did last week of kind of my personal top 20 of 2020. You can check that out if you want to see, kind of hear more of my opinions on the matter. We'll make sure to leave a link to that. But as for the criteria of how we picked, we're going to stick to production stuff and non-sprint runs specifically. It's got to be a regular line item, regular production item. And if it is a knife that was released new this year, but it's part of a series that was previously existing, in order to earn its way into the spot or into the list, it had to have made up the sales to get there all on its own, not relying on any of the rest of the series. If it was a new series that was released this year, those do get lumped together in terms of the actual numbers. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's start taking a look at the honorable mentions. And the first two of those are the SOG Terminus XR and S35VN and the Hogue Deka. And the reason I'm saying these are honorable mentions is these actually landed in the last week and a half of 2019 is when these hit our shelves and we started shipping them out to you guys. So I could have gone ahead and said, you know what, let's just count them as 2020s. But by doing them as honorable mentions, I actually get to talk about a few more knives than just the top 10. So here they are. These would have definitely earned their spot based on sales alone. And they kind of represent two sides of the same coin in terms of crossbar locking knives on the smaller EDC side. SOG, of course, has been on a tear recently, and if we were giving an award for like the most improved knife of the year, I would actually give it to the whole SOG brand because they've been doing a really good job of updating some of their classic models. But the Terminus is one of their newer ones. These come in about $85 right now. S35VN steel, like I mentioned, just under 3 inches. You've got their XR lock, their excellent take on the crossbar lock mechanism, G10 with carbon fiber overlays on the top, and some nice little bit of flipping action going on. Just a really solid everyday carry folder for a really good price, and definitely worthy of recognition for sure. Now the Deka, on the other hand, kind of a similar form factor, but it's a little bit larger, a little bit more blade length, and it's also a heck of a bargain. Even though it starts more expensive around the 140 mark or just north of that, but when you consider you've got upgraded materials and American-made construction, it really does start to make a lot of sense. Different colors of G10, clip point or Wharncliffe blade shapes available, 20 CV steel, so really nice edge retention, and a nice thin blade for excellent cutting action as well. Fit and finish is excellent, as with everything Hogue is doing these days, and I gotta say, I think their crossbar lock, which they call the Able lock, is pretty much, in terms of smoothness and refinement, the one to beat these days. They're just really, really knocking their execution out of the park. All right, the next two honorable mentions are only honorable mentions because they only very recently came out, and that is the Benchmade Mini Osborne and the CJRB Ria. Now, if we look at just the velocity of these knives, these guys are definitely hot knives, but because they've only just come out, they can't quite compete with stuff that's been on sale all year long. But if these had come out earlier in the year, I guarantee you they would have had some really high spots on the list this year. The Mini Osborne, of course, is the smaller version of the classic 940 Osborne. This is the 945 right here. $175, just under that. S30V steel with the reverse Tonto shape that's classic to that model. Black coating, black G10 on the handles. This is not aluminum like the standard 940. And we've got blue standoffs and some blue liners on the inside there for a little bit of a pop of color. And I know I said Hogue was kind of the ones to beat in their crossbar lock. Don't take that as me saying the axis lock is no good, because it certainly is very good. It's just that I think Hogue's doing a really good job. But nice little knife here. As soon as we saw it, we knew it was going to be a hit. And then the Ria also been on a real hot streak. And that's partly because the prices on these to start with are only about 32 bucks. And with that, you're getting some truly fantastic thumb stud action going on. I say it a lot, it feels almost assisted in just how quick and snappy and smooth it actually is. But there's a bunch of different versions available, from the 12C27 versions on the lower end with a deep carry pocket clip up to the RPM 9 powder metallurgy versions, which include this marbled carbon fiber version, which is a KnifeCenter exclusive for a bit more. This one comes in at about 75 bucks. You got a milled titanium pocket clip as well. So you've got a breadth of options to choose from, but they've all got that fantastic action. All right, the last honorable mention before we get into the list proper is, well, the only reason I'm making this an honorable mention is because it is a knife, but it isn't a knife. It's kind of an accessory or a multi-tool, but it does have a blade on it. It has a replaceable utility knife blade. This is the Gerber Prybrid. There's a green and a gray version. These come in about 23 bucks. And you've got that replaceable utility blade, which is great. Slides in and out. You've got an access point here that you can use to cut string without actually extracting the blade from the handle itself. And then making it a multi-tool on the back, you've got a pry bar and the requisite bottle opener right there. They're really cool, really handy, priced really nicely. And if we were gonna say full stop that this is a knife, which it kind of is, but it kind of isn't, like I said, this honestly would have had almost the top spot in the top 10 list this year. It's just that, this has been that successful for us. But again, by calling it not quite a knife, I get to talk about more stuff, even though this is certainly deserving of recognition. Yeah, for sure. There's even a smaller X-Acto bladed version, but I don't even count that in the sales figures on this particular knife that would have earned it its spot. So definitely check these out. Very handy, very affordable. All right, we're gonna start now at number 10 and work our way up to number 1, the best-selling new knife of the year. And number 10 is the Benchmade Mini Bugout. And I apologize that I actually don't have one here in front of me. This has actually been in such high demand, especially right here at the holiday season, that we didn't have one on the shelf on the day that I came in to film this video. So I apologize for that, but it's a really cool knife. We've done some videos on it, and we'll make sure to show you some of our older B-roll here to get a feel for it, if you've been living under a rock and you haven't seen it yet already. But they've taken just a classic Bugout, which has been such a popular knife, and they've made it into an even smaller size. It's even more convenient to carry. These start at about 120 right now. They're American made. They've got the excellent axis lock. Their blade length is coming in just under 3 inches, so it's easier to carry than ever. And for folks that live in a jurisdiction where that blade length is what you need, definitely a great option for you to check out. But now, so I make it easier on Thomas, our video producer, for cutting this together, I won't talk any more about that, so he doesn't have to find as much old footage to cover stuff up. And let's move on to the next one, number 9, the Real Steel Luna Lite. And the reasons for the popularity of this knife, I think, are pretty apparent. One, low price. This KnifeCenter exclusive version with black blade, black hardware, and white G10 comes in just about 30 bucks, so it's really nice. It's another very slim carry, like the Mini Bugout. In fact, there's a black and white version of the Mini Bugout as well. Carries slim, nice and light, and it's classic in terms of its locking construction, or lack thereof. This is a slip joint knife. Got a nice detent partway through the travel there. Some really nice walk and talk for a very good price. Beyond that, it's also got a pocket clip, which you don't typically see on slip joint knives, making it much easier to carry day to day. And it's just got a great profile that makes it very versatile for day-to-day tasks. Blade length about 2 3/4, D2 steel for a good solid edge retention, especially for that $30 price point, and a full flat grind on a thin enough blade where it's just going to slice all day long very easily. Of course, there's some other colors too beyond this exclusive version. There's some brighter handle colors with some blades that don't have the black coating as well for a slightly even more traditional look in those regards, but it's just super convenient and super capable little knife. All right, next up is a knife from a series that was introduced a few years ago, the Kershaw Bareknuckle. Well, KnifeCenter has upgraded these knives with 20 CV steel on a pair of exclusives, and they definitely earned their spot in the top 10 new knives this year. You can check them out here. Really nice colors. The first we came out with was the champagne gold. It's the Bareknuckle champ, if you will. And we've also got the flat bronze version here at the bottom, both with 20 CV blades with that gray coating, dark gray coating. Really, really slick looking knives. There's definitely a lot of high style in this particular design, and they're actually a pretty good bargain as well. 120 bucks to start on these, and you get American-made construction, that high style, and that upgraded blade steel, which is very, very nice. Now, what I really like about this design, no matter which version you choose, is they're put together extremely well. You've got KVT bearings in the pivot. The action is quite good. You've got that really cool sub frame lock on the back. Deep carry pocket clip as well, so it carries easily. We actually just got some bragging rights with this particular knife as well. A few days ago, Kershaw actually put out a video where their employees ranked their favorite exclusive variants out there these days, and this actually took the #1 spot. And if you don't know why, I think it's actually pretty obvious because it's just plain awesome. All right, number 7 is sort of a surprise hit actually. The new Buck Ground Combat fixed blades. Surprising, I say, because Buck's not typically known as a combat knife company, but here you go. These have sold like hotcakes, and as soon as you pick it up, it's kind of easy to see why. They're American made and they're extremely solid in the hand. They're also priced fairly affordably too, just about 100 bucks. And for a US made fixed blade of this caliber and this length, that's not a bad price at all. Blade steel is 5160, so it's extremely tough, especially in some of those harder use scenarios that a combat knife is going to need to perform in. But you've got 2 different colors and 2 different blade shapes right now. You've got Sniper Gray and Coyote Tan, each available in the Tonto or the Spear Point configuration. The handles themselves are micarta, left with kind of a rough matte texture, so you've got plenty of grip there. Definitely locks into your hand, both in a forward and a reverse grip. Again, combat knife may have to deal with those types of grips more often. And it also comes with a fully featured sheath system here as well. You've got positive retention on it. You've got MOLLE compatibility on the back, a retaining strap here, just everything a combat knife is going to need to make sure you can retain your blade. I'm really glad to see this on the list because, one, it's American made and there's a few good American made options on this list today. That makes me very proud. And I'm also really glad to see a company like Buck that's so steeped in heritage still pushing their boundaries and coming up with something new and exciting for today's marketplace. All right, number 6 is from Spyderco, and it's a pair of 3. And like I said, for a previously existing pattern to find its way on the list today, it has to have made the blockbuster sales necessary on its own, and this one did it. This is actually another one I don't have on the table in front of me. It's the new version of the Para 3 Lightweight with Spyderco's new proprietary steel Spy 27. I actually have a native 5 in that configuration here at the top. Both of these knives American made, so it shaped like the Para 3 Lightweight here on the bottom, but colored like the native 5 here at the top. But the Para 3 is coming back, even though we don't have any of them right now. This was not a sprint run, so we will see more of the Spy 27 version in the future, which, especially on a design like the Para 3, I think is really cool. They haven't released the specific formulation of Spy 27 just yet, I don't believe. I could be wrong about that. So I'm really keen to see how it's actually performing out there for folks who have received one. But I'm pretty excited by it, and it's cool to see knife companies actually driving steel innovations a little more these days. But the Para 3 Lightweight is a great option for some of those sub 3-inch needs out there because it's a 3-inch knife, but it feels like a bigger knife because you've got a big, strong, full handle on it. And it's a great city knife too because you've got a nice deep carry pocket clip with that subtle wire construction and lightweight handles with the FRN, but of course they're a blue color, that cobalt blue rather than black. And they call it cobalt blue because that Spy 27 relies heavily on cobalt in its composition, so it's a good kind of thematic tie-in as well. But job well done to all the Spy 27 knives this year, but the Para 3 in particular, which, like I said, more than earned its place on the top 10 this year. All right, number 5 was actually a real runaway success from Ka-Bar, their new wrench knife, because it kind of takes just enough novelty wrapped around an extremely usable blade shape to make it a very desirable little fixed blade. The price doesn't hurt either. This is actually only about 40 bucks right now, and it's still made in the USA, which again, I'm very happy to see. Blade length is just over 3 inches, or just about, I should say. It depends on where you measure from. I guess you should probably just measure the edge in this case, since there's no leading handle edge to measure to. But it's a forgeable stainless steel, what is it, 425 stainless. Yeah, that's correct. So it's not a champ in terms of edge retention, but they had to make it out of something that they could drop forge, so they could maintain this integral, very strong construction. Now, in addition to just being a usable knife, obviously they were riffing off of something I'm used to seeing on like Instagram or Facebook videos. You have time-lapse videography of folks who take an old school carbon steel wrench and forge it into a knife blade. And you get kind of that vibe here, but no actual knife or no actual wrench in the end. So you're not going to actually cut yourself when if you wanted to use it as a wrench. It's just a solid single piece knife design that looks cool and is going to serve you very well. Now, part of me thought it would be really funny if they included like a 10 millimeter there on the box end, but those are always disappearing. And if they did put a 10 millimeter on the back there, guaranteed you lose your knife. So they wanted to make sure you could actually hang on to this bad boy. All right, the next 3 spots actually, and this is kind of surprising and a little crazy, are taken up by ArtisanCutlery and their budget subsidiary CJRB. They've been on a tear this year. So at number 4 is actually their Feldspar series. Now this is one of those knives, kind of like the Ria in a way that we looked at there just a little bit earlier, that seem simple on the surface, but they're put together in such a way that the appeal is pretty apparent. This actually has a lot in common with one of the barn burners of the new knife releases last year, that being the Civivi Elementum, in that it's got simple, clean lines, so it's not overly busy. You've got really great fit and finish, and you've got a great combination of a liner lock, ball bearing pivot, deep carry pocket clip, and excellent D2 blade steel, all at a very low price, starting just over 30 bucks for the smallest versions. Like the Elementum, it's also got a 3-inch blade, so you can take it just about everywhere, and a neutral handle shape that's going to work for all kinds of different hand sizes. You've also got a larger blade version. This is the 3.5-inch blade model, and those do step up in price just a little bit. And this particular one right here is a KnifeCenter exclusive variation with contoured burlap micarta handles and a red pivot collar as well that just looks really nice. In addition to looking nice, I love the feel of a matte textured burlap micarta in the hand. It's got a little bit of a ragged texture, and I mean that in a good way. It's not fraying or anything like that. It just has a nice tooth in the hand, if that makes any sense. And especially the large version, my slightly larger than average hands can still fit all 4 fingers on there quite easily, but it's still not a bulky knife that's gonna weigh you down. It's just gonna work super well with you day to day. No flipper on this knife. This is another thumb stud only knife, again like that Ria, but the action is still spot on. Speaking of spot on action, that brings us to number 3, our KnifeCenter exclusive pattern, the small Archaeo non-locking folder from ArtisanCutlery. And it's usually kind of, the phrase is non-locking and great action in terms of flipping, so to speak, don't go hand in hand, but that is the case here. Because this is one of those detent non-locking knives. I used to call all of these double detents, but some of them, like this particular design, only use 1 detent bar. But essentially, it's a non-locking knife with just a detent that holds it in there at the back, instead of a traditional back spring like a slip joint would have. As a result, you can pretty much flick all of them closed like that, which is quite nice. But this small Archaeo KnifeCenter exclusive is one of the only knives out there that can actually flip open just as well. Therein lies the great action. There's also some extra safety measures built into this knife that I like. One, that flipper tab is going to keep the knife from closing on you if you do happen to break the detent. But also, you've got that hardened lock pin that can sit right there behind the tang and lock it into that open position. But even though you have that, this is not actually considered a locking knife. So when you combine the fact that it is non-locking, but yet you still have the safety of a locking knife, and you also have a sub 3-inch blade, combine those two things together, and this truly is a just about take anywhere knife. Right now there are a couple of different versions, and we've got even more exclusive variants of this knife coming out in the near future. We've got marbled carbon fiber and Packawood handled versions, as well as the one that we introduced this knife with, this topographic orange and black G10, paired with a VG10 Damascus blade. It's really hard to go wrong. All right, coming in number 2 on the list is actually a KnifeCenter exclusive version, all on its own, made it to this spot, of a knife that was released last year as one of CJRB's first knives that they released, the Crag model. And pretty much as soon as I saw it, I knew I wanted to do something with it as an exclusive. And this is essentially the vision we had for this unchanged right from the start, and it blew the doors off this year. Our exclusive version is $45, and it's with this knife that we established the burlap with red pivot collar combination that you just saw on that Feldspar a second ago. It looks great on that knife, don't get me wrong, but I think it really especially looks home on this cleaver right here because it really suits the rugged, hard-working nature of this knife. About 3.4 inches of blade, D2 steel, stone-washed finish, stone-washed pocket clip again, just like the other guy. And this is actually the first Crag that was released that had a contoured handle, which we were very keen on getting, rather than the flat-handled versions that the base models started with last year. And those I think came in around $35 to start. So not a heck of a lot of price increase to get more premium materials and a more ergonomic handle. And I must say, a much better looking knife. Not that the others looked bad, don't get me wrong. This one just blew it out of the park though. Now, one of the things you'll find about CJRB is the action on them is all very good. You certainly saw that on the Ria, but their flipper action is also quite nice. There's ball bearings in all of those CJRBs we just saw, and the action is tuned quite nicely. They're put together really well, and they're honestly pretty hard to beat for the money. Which brings us finally to number 1, the Kershaw Lucha. And without getting into actual sales numbers, let me just say that this knife absolutely steamrolled all the other new releases this year and handily earned the number 1 spot. And the reason for it is pretty simple. Kershaw was looking at the sort of mid-priced butterfly knife market and figured they could do something better than what was out there. And apologies to the other good mid-priced ballies out there. Kershaw really did a fantastic job with this knife and really hit the mission they were going for. Honestly, they did such a good job, and the price is not too bad, really. Starting at $120 for the standard stone-washed version, where if you're looking to step up from a trainer to your first real balisong, it's hard not to recommend this knife, even over the budget stuff that's out there. You're going to get stainless steel handles on this knife, skeletonized to remove some weight, because obviously stainless is not as balanced as aluminum or titanium might be. And to keep the action smooth and free-floating, they used their KVT ball bearings in the pivots. And I'm not an expert flipper by any stretch of the imagination, but as soon as I flipped this the first time at SHOT Show earlier this year, I knew that it was going to be a winner because it's smooth and it feels nice and solid. Now, for those of you who care what the blade itself is made out of, obviously for a lot of folks, these are just going to be something you do tricks with, but the balisong actually has a lot of advantages as an everyday carry too. Because of the way those handles pivot around the blade, it's actually really hard to close it on your fingers. So I appreciate that they went with something like 14C28N with this particular knife. Definitely one of my favorite steels on the kind of non-premium side of things. I like that it can take a really fine edge very easily. I really appreciate the toughness it gives you, especially for a stainless. That's a great thing. Plus, the shape that they've given it here is just about perfect. It looks really cool, and it's going to be very useful too. Now, there's also a black-washed version of this. Both handles and blade come with their signature black-wash finish if you want something a little different. And with the success of this knife this year, I'd be really surprised if we didn't see even more, even cooler variations to come in the not-too-distant future. All right, that's it for my list of the top 20 most popular best new knives of 2020. And this is usually the part where I say, let me know what you thought of my picks down in the comments, but these were your picks. So let me know what you thought of your picks down in the comments, and if you had any problems with what you chose as well. In any case, let me know what your favorite new knife of 2020 was. I'm really interested to hear from you guys. And if you want to get your hands on any of these knives now, make sure to click the links in the description to take you over to KnifeCenter.com. And as I always like to say, if you're going to put your hard-earned money down on one of these knives, you might as well earn some free money to spend on your next one, so make sure you sign up for our Knife Rewards program while you're there. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center signing off. Thanks everyone for your support in this crazy, crazy 2020. Thanks for everyone who's subscribed. We've over doubled our subscriber count in the last year, and we couldn't be happier about that. Here's to 2021 and things going even further up in the near future. See you guys next time.